Welcome back to another episode of the Remade Life podcast. In this episode, I'm talking about the value of being in charge of your well-being before being in charge of your treatment plan. I get it. We all want to say when it comes to the doctor's office and our plan of care, but it is so important to first take care of the basics regularly and consistently before making decisions about our treatment plan. Let's talk about it. Hello. Welcome back. I'm super excited for this episode because I hadn't really planned on talking about this until really when I was recording the first episode of this recent season. It just kind of came to me while I was in the middle of the episode that we should talk about like the difference between taking care of your well-being and taking care of your treatment plan or being in charge of your treatment plan. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it means to be in charge of your well-being before being in charge of your treatment plan. There's a lot to discuss here. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because through the process of sharing my healing journey and sharing about getting off of medications like multiple times, I have gotten a lot of DMs from people asking me, how did you do it? How did you get off of medication? And while I would love to give everyone this like super easy 5-step process for getting off medication, it's just not that simple. There's so many factors to consider. One of them being your relationship with your medical provider, which is drastically different for everyone. And there are other things to consider, like where are you in your autoimmune journey? Are you currently in an active flare-up? Because if so, then the answer is probably not the right time to get off of medication. And to be clear, as always, this is not me giving you medical advice. I am in no way saying to get on medication, to stay on medication, or get off of medication. That is most certainly between you and your medical provider, which is exactly why your relationship with your medical provider is such a big factor in this. And other things to consider. If you are in remission, how long have you been in remission? And most importantly, and what we'll talk about most today, is what are you doing outside of your medical appointments, like outside of the doctor's office? How are you taking care of your body and your mind? So, getting off of medication. I have been through this process multiple times now. I think 3. Full disclaimer, I am currently taking medication, so I'm not 100% off of all medications. That is a very intentional choice at the moment. The first time getting off of medication, I don't even know what to count here. Maybe it's been 4 times. Technically, the first time getting off of medication was back in high school, college era. I had gotten off Cellcept after I'd gotten into remission from kidney inflammation the first time. This was early on. I don't remember exactly the exact year, but so that was the first, I guess. And then in 2016, I did the Autoimmune Paleo Protocol, and that helped me get off of prednisone after taking it for 9 years. Yeah, 9 years. And disclaimer here, just adding all the disclaimers. I am not saying that AIP will help you get off of prednisone. I am just saying that is what helped me get off of prednisone. So I got off 2017. And then again in 2023, I got off of the Plaquenil, and then now again in 2025, getting off of all the big medications that I had to take from the flare-up last year, from the kidney inflammation flare-up. So let's go through a quick background of how I even got to the point of getting fully off of medication. I'm talking about the more recent years. So in 2022, after working through a very intense season of depression, I started making connections between my emotional health and my physical health. And so I started working through these really long held emotions, and suddenly like my labs started changing. Things started looking different. And this was specifically around dealing with my anger and how that changed my elevated liver enzymes. I think I did a podcast on this. Actually, there's 2 podcast episodes. I'm sorry, I can never remember like what episode was what while I'm recording. So I will link those 2 episodes in the show notes. Like one of them is around kind of working through that season of depression, and then this like unveiling of the chronically ill identity, and kind of what that did for me, the changes that brought on. And then the other episode was more specifically related to anger and my liver function. They're pretty great episodes, so make sure you listen to those as well if you're interested in the conversation of emotional health and how it's tied to your physical health. Anyways, when I started like realizing that the emotional unraveling, so to speak, was having an impact on my labs, like I got pretty excited, and I felt like I'd found this key to my healing. And in a sense I did, but at the time I really did not have an idea of the amount of work that awaited me. That was just kind of like the tip of the iceberg. That was like the peeling back the layers. It was like, oh, I peeled back kind of like the outer surface layer, and I thought like that was it, that this is the healing. And I had no idea that there was so many more layers ahead of me. Yeah, so like healing the deeply held emotions that I believe created autoimmune disease. It's not like, oh, I'm feeling stressed and let me think positive thoughts and then I won't feel stressed anymore. Like, it is not like that at all. It's a huge unloading, and it's a huge changing of your entire identity, your entire being. So I know it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm really selling this. So if you are interested, let me know. I do think that another episode on this is coming. Like, I do want to do an episode on like all the different identities and layers that I've peeled back over the years, and even more so like this past year, as I have dug deeper into, why did kidney inflammation reoccur? Like, what did I not learn the first time that I needed to learn in this season? And it's quite interesting, but I think I just don't fully have the words yet to pull it all together to be like, this is how you heal from the emotional wounds that create autoimmune disease. But I don't know. Anyways, more on that to come in the future. Like I said, if you're interested in this conversation, send me a DM. Would love to chat and sort through those words. So yeah, would love to hear from you. Okay. Let's keep moving on. So, okay, at the beginning of 2023, so 2022, worked through that season of depression, really made that connection. And then at the beginning of 2023, I think that was when my gastroenterologist, like the doctor I was seeing for my liver enzymes, he was like, "You're good. I don't need to see you again." And I was like, great. And so that's kind of when I got the idea of like, I wonder if I just take care of all these emotions and things, can I get off of medication? Like, do I need the medication anymore? If like all the medication was just like masking all these emotions, but now like I'm taking care of them, can I get off of the medication? And so I asked my rheumatologist if I could get off Plaquenil, and he was like, yeah, that's no problem. And I was like, what? Are you serious? Like, I was fully prepared for him to laugh and to say, no chance. And I had this whole speech prepared about why I should be able to get off the Plaquenil. And he was just like, you can stop it today if you want. There are no side effects. And I was like, well, hold on now. Not so fast. I think that I want to taper. And so for the following 3 months, I did. I tapered medication all the way down to like just taking it 3 times per week. And then I just stopped. And then I was off of medication for a whole entire year before I had second kidney inflammation flare-up in 2024. So, did I fail at being off medication? No. At least I don't think so. Being off medication actually brought up a lot of what was being masked underneath the medication. I think there was a lot more than what I could see initially. And all of those things would not have been so obviously brought up to the surface while being on medication. So those things just couldn't hide anymore, and like there was no crutch for them. For me, there was still a lot of unresolved things that were causing low-grade chronic stress that were keeping my nervous system in sympathetic mode and fight or flight. But because I was always on medication, like there were no symptoms, right? But being off of the medication and then having this huge flare-up last year, it made those things really apparent for me. But this episode is not about the emotional healing. I mean, in a way, it is, because at the root of why we do what we do or why we don't do things is our emotional wounds and our beliefs shaped from those emotional wounds. But I will just let those come up for you naturally. Like I said, DM me or give me a call if you do want to talk about that. But okay. Fast forwarding to today, I am back on medication and I am simultaneously working through all the things that I hadn't seen before. So over the last year, I have slowly, one by one, gotten off of all but one of my medications, which is, again, an intentional choice at this moment. But it was initially intended for me to be on my Fortic and Benlysta, which were like what I call the like big medications from the last year. So I was initially told like, hey, you'll be on these for like at least 2 years. And in just a year's time, I'm off both of those. So, of course, as I mentioned, I've gotten a lot of DMs of like, how did you do it? And I always sigh because I get so overwhelmed when people ask me that because they don't know how to give this straightforward answer. And I could be like, oh, well, I got off of medication by acknowledging all the layers of emotional protection that I have carried for decades that were actually causing a lot of stress on my nervous system and therefore impacting my immune function. Like, what? Most people want you to give them a plan, a protocol, some program to follow. And I think people expect me to be like, oh, I just followed this like green juice diet for 3 months and it healed everything, right? Like, oh, I eat like raw vegan, whatever that one diet is out there. Because most people still associate autoimmune disease with just the physical part, and that it's just their immune system attacking their body. And so if they can get rid of the inflammation, they can calm their immune system, like then everything will be healed. But they don't really want to hear about how their incessant need to find a solution is really a deeper expression of self-avoidance and dissociation. Like, you see how weird that sounds to say? But like I said, this is not an episode about emotions. Wink, wink. I do want to give you more practical applications of getting to a point where you can be in charge of your treatment plan. And what I mean by that is that you can confidently walk into your doctor's appointment and you get to call the shots about what's next in your plan of care. So one thing that people need to remember is that your doctor works for you. You pay them. Now, that's not to say to go in there and not listen to them at all or just disregard any of their directions. You have to think about it first as a team effort, right? Like I said, your relationship with your provider is super, super important. And the trust that you two have with each other is truly going to determine whether or not you can be in charge of your treatment plan. And they have to trust you and you have to trust them. So at every single one of my appointments over the past year, I've gone in and I've told my rheumatologist, like, this is the plan that I want. And every single time it has turned out the way that I have wanted to. And no, I'm not just lucky. I have done the work for years and years to be in charge of my well-being outside of my doctor's appointment, that I now do get to be in charge of my treatment plan because my doctor trusts me. So let me give you this example. With my rheumatologist, I've been seeing him since 2018. So like 7, almost 8 years. he knows me and I know him. He has a private practice. So after my flare-up last year, he recommended that I get established with Duke Rheumatology, and just to have a second opinion and like an additional provider should it ever be needed. So I went to see the rheumatologist there, and it actually was one of the rheumatologists that I had seen in the hospital. And at that appointment, the provider from Duke said, yeah, it looks like you're going to be on Myfortic for another 2 years. And I was like, 2 years? What? And of course, like, you have to understand that, like, this provider doesn't know me. And so he's making this suggestion based on what he knows from how other people have responded on this treatment plan, how, like, clinical trials have gone, like what is the common protocol, right? He has no idea what my life is like outside of my appointments, because we never talked about it. This is the first time I'm seeing him outside of like me being in a hospital bed. So all he knows about me is flare up, right? So he has no idea that I take a lot of care of my body. I move regularly, exercise, I nourish my body well, I focus on hydration, I focus on my sleep. He knows nothing about me. He also doesn't know like what my labs have looked like over the last 5-10 years or whatever. And so literally the following week, the week right after, I had a follow-up with my rheumatologist, the rheumatologist that I see regularly, and we chatted about Myfortic, and I was like, yeah, I'd really like to be done with this as soon as possible. And initially I wasn't like, I need to get off of this today. I was just like, what's the timeline looking like? Right? Like, when can I get off of this? And he said, yeah, I do think it's time. Like, all of my labs were like looking like remission numbers, and while I had not been in remission like that long, like my doctor has like seen the patterns over the years. And so he said, let's get off of Myfortic and switch to a different medication. So I switched to azathioprine, which is more of like a maintenance drug. And he switched me because I could handle being off of the stronger medication, because he knew that I would take care of my body and support my body in staying in remission. And he knows that because I have shown him that over the years, that I take care of my well-being outside of my visits. And this was, again, a team effort. I didn't go in there and say, I'm getting off all medication today, right? I asked and I expressed my desire to get off of the Myfortic, and we kind of found a middle ground. We kind of came to a compromise, like, well, we can't just like take you off all this medication. Like, I hadn't been in remission very long yet. And so he said, well, let's just switch you to a different drug. So that was the compromise. So what does taking care of your well-being look like? Well, first, it starts with taking your medication, and taking it as prescribed, and taking it regularly and consistently. And this has actually always been really easy for me. I remember when I was first diagnosed with lupus when I was 16 as a teenager. And I remember the nephrologist that I was seeing at the time, she said, you were such a great patient. You always take your medication. And I was like, what? Like, do people not? And she was like, no, people do not take their medication regularly. And even like as adults. And I just thought, like, what? Because they're teens, they're young kids, they don't know. But like, no, adults don't take their medication regularly either. So I personally have not struggled with taking my medication regularly. I just like take it with my breakfast every morning. Which I know, like, some people are like, I just don't eat breakfast. And it's just one of those things that, like, you can't live off of your excuses. You can't defend your excuses. Like, I get it. You don't have breakfast. Like, find a different way, but take your medication regularly, right? And, like, over the years that I've been involved as a coach in the autoimmune space, you'd be surprised at the number of people that just don't don't take their medication regularly or don't take it as prescribed. Like people will go several days without taking it and just be like, I forgot and I don't feel well. And like, this is quite literally like the first and most basic step in building trust with your providers. Can you follow instructions? Can you take your medication as prescribed? Which I know seems counterintuitive when like your goal is to get off medication, but the first step, like you have to take that first step. You have to trust that the medication will support you while you make additional lifestyle changes. So first things first, take your medication regularly. Don't skip the doses. Like, use it to help you get to remission. Use it to help you get to a point where you can get off of medication. And then secondly, the next several things that I'm going to share aren't necessarily in like a particular order of importance. I think for everyone, what they need to address is different. So please don't hear this list as like, it must be done in this order, or like, this is the most important thing. These are just 5 basic needs of human body function. Okay, so just hear them as these are basic needs. Sleep. This is a tough one, I know, because for a lot of people, good, consistent sleep is tough, like for one reason or another. You either have a hard time falling asleep, or you have a hard time like staying asleep. You wake up throughout the night, or you just like, you sleep, but you don't wake up rested. There are a lot of tips and tricks for good sleep hygiene, and we could dive into those, but I don't love giving to-do lists of like, here's how to get good sleep, because that's just so different for everyone. Like, you have to acknowledge what keeps you up at night, and you need to work through that, and you need to do what you need to do to get better sleep. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, get good sleep, like do what you need to do to get better sleep. And sometimes like I really annoy myself, because I used to always get so frustrated when like my mentors or teachers like didn't just give me a straightforward answer. And like I would like argue back as like, I get what you're saying, but like for me, like this doesn't work because whatever. And like, I just wanted them to like tell me what was going to help me fix my thing. Like, mine was so special and unique that the like tips and tricks that worked for everyone else didn't work for me. And I didn't want to say this, but like I will, because I like to be kind. I like to be kind, and I'm very mindful in the way that I say things, because listen, I've been there. Like, autoimmune disease is so frustrating. It's so hard, and I've been through all the same roller coasters you have. And so when I say this, please hear this through a filter of compassion and understanding. I know that you believe your body is very unique, and it is. It really is. Your body is so unique and just so intricately designed. However, it is not that special. And I hate to say that because I know how it sounds, but it's not so unique and so special and so different that it works so different from everyone else's. It's a human body. And like I said, I have a hard time saying this, because like I want to acknowledge everyone's uniqueness. I want to acknowledge like everyone's individuality and like what makes everyone a unique, special human being. But at the same time, it's a human body, and really they all work the same. We can argue all the nuances, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, the human body like needs its basic needs met, and sleep is one of those. So do what you gotta do to get good sleep. Okay? You can either defend your excuses or figure your stuff out. So that's what I'll say on that. Okay, water and hydration. Like, your body needs to be hydrated. Get hydrated. Drink your water. Eat your water, fruits and vegetables. Move your water. Move throughout the day. Move your water. Drink it, eat it, move it. So remember that. Drink your water, move your water. Sorry, drink your water, eat your water, and move your water. Okay, hydration. Your body needs to be hydrated. And then third, nourishment. And I intentionally say nourishment because I know that the words nutrition and diet carry such heavy weight for people. Like, your relationship with food plays a big role here. And I don't know that that's also very personal to everyone, but all of the nuances aside, again, like, your body needs to be nourished. It needs to be nourished to function. I feel like I'm so in my head right now about, like, how this is all coming across, because, like, I'm in my head hearing all the voices of, like, but my body this, but my body that. And I know that that is coming from my previous experience of being in the online autoimmune space, where, like, everyone has their excuse and everyone has their reason for why their body is unique and nothing works for them. And I can feel that coming on right now. But, like, I have to be straightforward. Like, you have to meet your body's basic needs. Like, you have to get sleep. You need to stay hydrated, and you need to nourish your body. And also, you need to move your body. You have to move your body. And these are, like, the basics of human function. If you can meet your body's basic needs, your body will function. So move your body and move it often. I'm actually right now in the middle of a 30-day yoga challenge. And of course, like, having worked in the fitness industry for, like, over 14 years now, I've done yoga before, but I've never had a regular, consistent practice until now. And I have to say, my body feels amazing. And I am laughing at myself because I used to roll my eyes anytime someone suggested that yoga heals you. And there's a discussion to be had there, right? I think that you can choose whether or not yoga heals you. That's totally up to you. But my body's feeling pretty great right now. And this is not an advertisement for you to do 30 days of yoga unless you want to, but a reminder that movement is a form of medicine. And if you need a place to start, I'll do a little shameless plug here. I have a DIY 8-week strength training program. It's called Remade Strong Foundations, and it's a program that combines both movement and mobility, which I have found is a really great way to build a strong foundation in exercise and strength training that doesn't lead to the exercise-related flare-ups. And I also offer restorative movement sessions if you are looking for a more personalized support and wanting to address, like, specific things in your body when it comes to movement. And restorative movement sessions are a really great way to build a movement practice that supports your body's healing systems. We work a lot with the nervous system, with the lymphatic system, with the breath. And I offer both virtual and in-person movement sessions. So the links to the DIY strength training program and restorative movement sessions will also be in the show notes. So check those out. Okay, and lastly, but not least important, mental health. In general, if you take care of the other things, your sleep, hydration, nourishment, and movement, your mental health will take care of itself for the most part. Not entirely, right? Mental health is a whole different ballgame, but in general, if you are meeting your body's basic needs, like, your mental capacity will improve, right? So some things to think about when considering your mental health: are you creating opportunities for joy? And yes, even with autoimmune disease, it is actually quite necessary to create opportunities for joy while you are in your healing process. So think about what are the things that bring you joy, the things that light you up, and the things that you think you can't do anymore because of autoimmune disease, like, are actually the path to your healing. So Maybe you can't do them 100% right now, but taking a step in that direction of creating that opportunity for joy is actually a very important part of the healing process and taking care of your well-being. Also, non-sleep rest. So having moments of stillness throughout your day. And yes, that can be a meditation practice, or that can also just look like just sitting on your couch and doing nothing, like relaxing, letting your mind be a little bored, right? Instead of you're always on a task, doing this, doing that, going from one thing to the next. Let your mind slow down and do nothing for a little bit, right? We have to eliminate this hurry that we're in all the time. And then addressing your emotional well-being. Just address what you need to address. I won't say any more on that, but just address what needs to be addressed there. Take care of the basics of being a human, because honestly, the more that you elevate your humanness, the less room there is for disease. And when you can consistently show up for yourself outside of your medical appointments, guess what? You will have less flare-ups, your labs will improve, and you will feel well. Don't make autoimmune disease so hard. And I know that that can sound offensive because it is hard, but it also doesn't have to be. Like I said earlier, I know that a lot of us are looking for this very special plan that's specifically catered to our specific diagnosis, but your body is just not that different. It's not so different that it is so outside of the basic design of the human body. And it works like any other body does. The basics of human functioning are the same for everyone. And I know you probably hate to hear it, but it's true. Get good sleep, hydrate, nourish your body, move your body, and take care of your mental health. Those are the basics. Can you confidently say that you are meeting those basics every single day? And even with autoimmune disease, 95% of your problems will be resolved when you are meeting those basic needs on a daily basis. Having an autoimmune disease does not excuse you from meeting your body's basic needs. So when you can own the basics of your well-being, then there is room for having a say in your treatment plan. Because when you start having less frequent, less intense flare-ups, then there is room to play around with the medication, to change things around here and there, because your body can handle the changes. And there's less risk for things to head in a negative direction. There isn't this need for your body to overreact to sudden changes. Why? Because you are consistently meeting its basic needs. You are doing your well-being every single day. You're creating a sense of safety in your body. And the more you spend in safety, so in fancy terms, that's your parasympathetic nervous system, the more time you spend in parasympathetic, in safety, the easier it is for your body to heal. So where there is safety, there is groundedness. So when changes happen, for example, changing your medication, you don't go completely, you don't get thrown off course so easily. For example, so just this week, my period came early and I was like, what the heck? Well, that explains why I was in such a mood last week. But my period is pretty regular, give or take a few days. But for the most part, I know the cycle, right? When it came early this week, I was like, what in the world? And then I realized oh, actually this is my first period since getting off of the azathioprine last month. And I said, I bet that change in medication, getting off of it, contributed to this change. And that has really been the only change I've noticed so far. And okay, kind of annoying, but not a huge disruption in the grand scheme of things, because everything else is in check. So if my menstrual cycle is just changed for a week, I'm not thrown completely off course, right? And of course, I've only been off of azathioprine for a month, so still monitoring changes, but I am taking care of all the other things so that when something is different. I'm not like, what could this be, right? I'm checking the base. I'm like, my sleep is good. I'm moving, I'm hydrating, I'm nourishing my body, taking care of my mental health. So like, I'm taking care of the basics, right? Be in charge of your well-being, and then be in charge of your treatment plan. And if you need help, that is what I'm here for. This is what I help my clients with. I don't do this stuff for you. I will teach you, and we'll figure out how this all fits into your life. We troubleshoot, we figure out what makes the most sense for you, and we work through it together. Movement and massage are such unique tools to get to know yourself, and it's a very intimate way of rebuilding a relationship with your body. And you can schedule a free consultation with me at the link also provided in the show notes. And I see clients both in person and virtually. So if you want support in this, reach out to me. I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. And the beautiful part of all of this, of taking ownership of your well-being, is that you won't need me to hold your hand. You won't need me for accountability. Like, you will be accountable to yourself, because you'll see how amazing it feels, and you'll see all the changes that it creates in your life. Like, isn't that an amazing feeling to know that you can hold authority over your health, over your well-being, and you don't need to be having your hand held and reaching out for like opinions here, opinions there, and getting everyone else's opinions, but you just know your body. You're going to start seeing your labs change, and like your doctor's going to start spacing out those appointments, and you'll feel nervous at first about it, but like over time, like you realize that you don't have to be so dependent on your provider. And that is when you get to be in charge of your treatment plan. But first, you must be in charge of your well-being. You have to meet your body's basic needs in some way every single day. That is how you build trust. If you have listened to this podcast, any of my podcast episodes, like, you know, I truly stand by this. Trust is so essential to your healing. You have to trust your body, and your body has to trust you. It has to trust you to meet its basic needs every day. This is how you create safety in the body, and this is how you create healing in the body. And where there is healing, there is vitality, and with vitality comes capacity for change. So that is when you can start making changes in your medical treatment plan. That is when you get to be in charge of your treatment plan. All right, my friends, that is all for today. I hope that this conversation was helpful. I hope that it is a starting point for you being in charge of your well-being, in hopes of being in charge of your treatment plan. That is what I want for everyone. I want everyone to be able to walk into their doctor's office and say, I know my body so well that I know that this is what I need. I want that for you. All right, until next time, my friends. Be well.